So you've spent a whole morning at the American Express Leadership Academy. Thank you so much. We really, really value your contribution. Was it worthwhile for you?
Absolutely. I mean, it's right aligned through our pedagogy of what we want to do, providing accessibility to this information, this education. And at the same time, it was really interesting to start hearing behind the scenes an NGO of what they're looking for. And that's, I think, a key factor for us to be able to provide more of it.
You know, one of the things we set up BSD to do is to bring more people into the world of technology. It was a huge problem for me in business, and so that is core to our mission. And what we see the NGO and the non-profit world as critical to the mission of our company, because the non-profit world has possibly the greatest grassroots access of any other part of business or civic society. So for us, understanding that world, getting feedback direct with participants, and also be able to facilitate their presence and for other people to see what NGOs are doing is extremely powerful.
Wonderful. So was there any possibility of a kind of a concrete synergistic outcome by the end of the session?
I would say one of the best parts was you could, from our part as well as all the different NGOs that were there, you could start seeing a big picture, which was basically how overall connected can actually provide a bigger impact instead of having a segregation between the community. And one of the best parts for us was to be able to provide that support. Because they've already got the planning and structure, is that providing that little bit of extra support where they get stuck, and that's all they need. So if all of them start doing it as one unit, that's what we started seeing happening.
One of our core messages is that this morning we spent the morning talking about digital marketing, and particularly we focused quite a lot with social media this morning. And something that's really important is that social media and technology is for everyone. And a lot of people think traditionally of as non-profits having zero budget, in effect, so marketing budget being very constrained. But a lot of the time, actually, in the digital world, that doesn't matter. And so one of the things, I think it's very synergistic between what the non-profit world sees as beneficial to them and what we can confirm for ourselves in what we're doing, is that if you apply structure, you apply rules, you think about where you're spending and how that impacts your cause, how that impacts your customers, your fans, your supporters, in a very structured, data-driven way. That shows and that proves to everyone else in the world. So it benefits the businesses, it benefits the supporters, it benefits society in a very different way, and we learn a lot at the same time.
Talking of learning, is there a particular leadership trait that you need to lead in the IT world?
For me in particular, I would say definitely the hacker mentality, as we call it, is the ability to pick up something and not be afraid to be wrong, and accept that you're not going to be 100% in the knowledge sphere of something, especially in the tech world. You need to be able to go in and just do it. The hacker mentality is absolutely a compulsory unit of what you need to succeed.
I think, and I see particularly in the work we do with maybe the large corporate markets, but across the board, for someone to lead in a digital world, first of all, you have to have an open mindset. What that means is, historically, people used to kind of make it perfect and then deliver it. The reality of digital is it's going to keep changing. It's constantly changing. You don't have time to make it perfect. And the problem is what's perfect today is not perfect tomorrow. And that is about open-mindedness. People have to get comfortable with the fact I'm going to launch something that's not perfect, that's a bit smaller, and that doesn't have everything, and then I'm going to develop it over time. And I'm going to iterate. So I'm going to cycle back, and then I'm going to cut parts and add new parts. Now, another part for a digital leader to be really successful is to be resilient. And digital leaders have to understand they are signing themselves up for a lifetime of frustrations, but they also must be willing to follow the topics. They need to constantly evaluate their own opinions, their own mindsets towards topics, towards what technology is working. If it's not right now, it doesn't mean you just write it off, it's not good in 6 months. So it's different to traditional product mentalities where if I see something now and it's not right, okay, I'm never going to use it, I'm just going to use this other one. You have to keep revisiting it. And the problems, the deeper that digital leaders get and the deeper that companies get into technology, the more complex the problems that they will attempt to solve are, and the more complex the problems that they will face are. And the more complex their platform becomes, the more change they will experience, and the greater number of problems they will constantly be solving. So, in very simple terms, if you're going to be a digital leader, be open and get used to pulling your own hair out, because that's what you're going to be doing for a long time.
Okay, just one last question, and that is, I was fascinated when you talked about the reach with the community. That you found the session interesting because the NGOs have the community reach. Are there any products that one can develop for communities, through the NGO world? Is there IT products or platforms that one can really look at for communities because of the language barriers and the technology?
One of the things, quite interestingly, we have a lot of students trying to attempt add to this is crowdfunding, which we talked a little bit about today. The ability to actually have a very micro level access to an individual that you're helping. And as a platform, if you look at crowdfunding, it's smaller segments of changing it little by little. When you look at big pictures, let's say a digital leader, we'll look at it as a big picture. But volunteers, individuals that want to contribute their time and money, they don't have the ability to look at it always as a big picture. They have the tiny little thing, and if they can change that one person's life, that's those platforms. That's what Indiegogo, for example, is around for. It's send someone to school, send someone to, or have medical surgery, which they don't have access to. That one person, putting a face to it. And the other section is, especially for Hong Kong, where they really lack, which I think the tech world could help, is a universal platform within Hong Kong that also has government support. So local charities, something that Chris actually runs, which I've contributed with, is a treasure hunt that supports local charities that have no government support. They don't have a voice, they don't have tech teams, they don't have money to hire tech teams. So that platform that's there just for them to actually get involved, put their face up there and help that individual person, make it about humanized as possible.
And the other thing with, I think in terms of technology and reaching communities, the beauty is that at its very basis, you can develop a website and a web platform for almost nothing now. And the ability to learn how to do that, it's a matter of a couple of hours plus, to actually be able to do that. So finance is not really a barrier anymore. Even if you can create a blog for free with WordPress.com. Okay. Now you can input your information, you can put imagery and video in any language in that. Now after that, we have grassroots communities that are still only reachable through SMS. We have communities in Hong Kong that will use one particular platform on that. So that's where the world of social media and digital media, you can create pockets of information that are localized to specific groups, and you can channel them back to a web presence. Now that in itself is a technology platform, and that in itself can be created for nothing or for a lot.
It's like an aggregator.
Yeah. And one of the key things that we try and say when you're trying to reach a very broad spectrum, don't just sit on one technology. Don't just sit and only talk about one thing that you know a lot about. Look at all of the different technologies available. Look at how the different communities that you're trying to reach are using those platforms or using those technologies that they're comfortable, because it's about them and not you. And then see how you can combine those and put them all together to then funnel them to a central point of information.
It also increases the user experience overall. User experience is normally known for profit models, like they talk a lot about it, but for non-profits, it's a huge deal as well. If you're not enjoying the experience of helping somebody, why would you do it?
Great. Thank you. Is there anything that you have? I mean, is there anything that you want to talk about?
I would personally just love to see more access to NGOs being able to communicate at a platform. Like just open up a bit more communication, because until today I didn't know half these NGOs existed. and I've been born and brought up here. So that I would love to see more. Absolutely.
I think one of the key things. Well, there's two key things I think from today. One of those is message. An NGO is not about the brand. It's about their message. It's about their causes. And I think that particularly in the digital world, the NGOs need to put the cause forward. And so when someone goes to your website or to your mobile app or to anywhere interaction with you as an NGO, where they land, what they need to see first is your message and your cause. If they come from your cause and they land somewhere that is not your cause or your message, you've lost them. I'm sorry, because it's not about your brand and it's not about your logo. It's about your cause. The second part of it in any world, but particularly now in the non-profit world, non-profit is competitive. Maybe we don't want to talk about that, maybe we don't want to say it, but non-profit is competitive. And not only do people need to hear you, to see you, but you have to be able to illustrate as a non-profit organization what your value proposition is. And the best way to do that is with data, is quantitatively. So you need to be able to show your customers, the people that you are supporting, your fans, your sponsors, what is the data behind what we do. Digital marketing is a massive, massive opportunity for non-profits to do that. And so we really hope that after today and in the future, that also that world can be positively impacted from that.
It's also transparency. There's nowhere to hide anymore. And what's really scary is over the last few years, I've seen some non-profits that will not disclose information. And for someone that's coming from outside, that's a very scary proposition to encounter. But digital media, digital marketing, that's going to open all up. So being able to say, that money you just gave us, that's where it went. That level of data is going to be absolutely crucial by the end of this year, if not more so next year as well.
And in the end, with all of that the opportunity there is trust. So the more digital marketing to show people how things are being spent and also the impact it's creating, it means that the trust relationship you have with your communities will be higher and higher and higher. And trust is fundamental to engagement.